ranking the best region in League of Legends history since they've had a server in 2012. But now, just for one more week, just 1 week exactly, 2 weeks, NA is still better than Korea, just for a little bit longer. So let me revel in that. But our first power rankings ever for our league predictions. We usually do this like off just our in general our heads, but this is our very first league power rankings. We're doing it on Korea, and most of the list is the same.
Most.
This is probably the first list where we've actually agreed on every single thing.
That is.
I'm still debating about the top spot, maybe, but I'm really kind of maybe there. But I mean that can go one of two ways. Honestly,
I mean, for the most part, I mean most of everybody's bottom three are probably similar. Bottom two, I wouldn't say bottom three, but it's really hard to.
I do have a dark horse. Before I start, I do have a dark horse. I think Hanwha Life could be a dark horse to beat a lot of the top teams if they actually show some different strengths than they have been showing with their players. They have some interesting players on their roster.
I mean, they really haven't changed anything since last year, to be fair, and we saw what they were capable of. They looked better towards the end of it, but I don't think they looked great.
They're that's weird. They're literally just outside of playoff range too.
Yep, they were just out of. They should have made playoffs. Afreeca.
If like other things had happened, they actually could have made playoffs. They were actually in playoffs for a bit, but technically
they were. It was literally the last game, I believe.
Yeah, SKT they dropped it to Afreeca, and then that pushed Afreeca up. Gosh,
they just.
So, the day in League where you can't bet on SKT winning.
Yeah. So all around, I think
we have the entire same list.
Yeah, for the most part, I feel like it's a little bit. It's kind of controversial for the most part because there's a lot of people, a lot of teams, a lot of people are like expecting to do really well, but I can't really put a lot of these teams higher because for some of them I just haven't seen enough of. There's a lot of these rosters that are just brand new, and it's just like they are extremely unproven. So it's kind of hard for me to say, oh yeah, they'll be good. Like a lot of these pretty decent performance in the Kespa Cup, I did actually not put too much emphasis on that because of the fact that a lot of these teams just came together like just prior to the Kespa Cup. But I do want to put a slight amount of emphasis on top of the fact that I want to put a little bit of emphasis on the what people have said like outside of the region and what the other pro players or pro teams have said about these specific teams. But that's pretty much it. There's not really much I can go off for some of these teams. So
some of these teams, it has to be based off Kespa. The other ones can be based off players like Sandbox. That's got to be based off like Kespa because we haven't seen much out of them, and that's what they were recently shown. So Sandbox is coming in at number 10.
Okay. I mean. Sandbox, it's not really hard.
It was debatably Jin Air, and then we kind of thought it over. We're like, wait a minute. It's probably going to be Sandbox.
I mean, let's be honest. Let's go to their bot lane. Tortoro, during his, I would say, when he first took over for Key, I think he did pretty okay. Like, he was replacing Key based purely off the fact that Key was inconsistent. It was obvious that he was the worst player in general, but he took over that spot just because of the fact that he was capable enough to consistently play at the same level, and then that's kind of what Loken needed to kind of take over the game. But and then we have Ghost, who I actually hyped him up a lot. I actually thought he was incredible for a little bit, and then last year was an extremely poor year for him. I think he was probably the single worst performing ADC in the league. That was when Teddy was on Jin Air. No, Ghost was really bad.
Yeah,
I mean, Ghost was playing with Ignar. He was on BBQ last year. Yeah, he had
Ignar. God, the roster had Trick.
Yeah,
oh my god, they picked up Trick after they saw him at Worlds. Holy moly, they deserve to be relegated. Gosh. And then now BBQ's top winner is on SKT.
You say holy moly? Are you? You're so much whiter than I am. So what I want to acknowledge is like I do think Ghost had the potential, and I still think he might.
I don't think he's on paper a really bad player.
I think he is on paper he is, but I think maybe he bounces back. Maybe it was just the roster itself, but I can't put him as a good player right now.
Tortoro, I did see Tortoro. I watched EULCS last year, and I watched it a bunch of years, but last year Tortoro was on Unicorns of Love. He was far and away probably the second best member, but you factor in, I knew watching him what he was trying to do. I think what he was trying to do was going to work out on a team where he can speak to all the same players. But you factor in Tortoro is most likely a lot more worse than the competition that's actually in the league. And then you have, I think their most standout player is their jungler. From what I've seen from who's going to be this Crush or on Fleek. It's Crush first, right? Crush is the starter.
What's up?
Crush is the starter, right?
Crush is the starter.
Yeah, for our Sandbox.
They got like 7 junglers, honestly.
They played on Fleek at Kespa, and then they swapped him out. So, I mean, I think Crush is going to be their best player.
They got 2 junglers, and I think that Crush. Honestly, I feel like he should be the starter, but I believe they're going to go with on Fleek.
That's the problem. On Fleek is just only about early game aggression. I've seen that guy before. I feel like if he changed his name, if that's the same guy I'm remembering, just from what I remember, no.
It's not the same guy you remember. This dude's never changed his name. He's been, he started literally last year, so I'm assuming that...
I've seen him. I just don't think he's not really like anything... He's like flawless from the LPL. I just don't think he's going to be... he's not amazing. He's an average player. That's the problem. All these players from this roster are just like underwhelming, average, like that's not getting anywhere in the LCK.
I'm just saying, like, I do agree that some of these players are underwhelming, but I really... Like, for the most part, most of these players are pretty much negligible. I feel like for the most part, we have the 2 top laners, obviously. We don't know who's going to be, but...
Summit and Wiser. I have never seen them play, except from what I've seen at the Casper Cup. Yeah. They played Summit, didn't they?
What's up?
They played Summit, I remember.
Okay, yeah. You remember?
I didn't think Summit was terrible. I mean, they're going to be 10th. I just see it.
The reason is that they have a pretty standout, like they have a large amount of average players, but for the most part, they don't have a star. I think that their best player.
Those teams can do well.
I don't acknowledge that. I don't really think that's a possibility. I think that their best player is Tortoro. I would say that Tortoro and the bot lane with Ghost. I think Ghost has been pretty underwhelming. I really think on paper, which again, this is really all we can go off of because of the fact that they haven't been together long enough. I think that on paper, this team is just not good enough to play. They're not good enough to kind of, what's it called? To get past this.
These guys were Battle Comics, weren't they?
Yes, this is the Battle Comics team.
They
got bought out.
That's the thing. I just didn't see them. I didn't see Battle Comics as good either. So.
Well, I mean, it's not completely the same team to be fair, but there's a few differences. For the most part, I think that if we go on this, they don't have enough on paper talent. I think that there's really not much I can say about them. They looked pretty. Like decent during during the play-ins when they had to beat out a few of the other teams, but they were obviously the worst version out of Damwon than them. So it's obvious that they had to get placed below Damwon because they were worse than them. So
and then you see that Damwon has IG's coach from last year, and you're like, well, just off even coach, you're like, well, it's moving up. Number 9 is Lovely Jag. Jag's had a long history of relegation. Maybe being playoffs, we could see there. If you're a Jin Air Groomings fan, God bless your soul, because I don't even know how you exist as a league fan. Okay,
so what I do want to acknowledge is that I think there's 2 to 3 really decent players on this team. I think that Linderong, Stitch, and Malorang, sorry, are actually three consistently decent players. So I do not think that this is a terrible team, and I think they have a lot of potential in terms of just younger players.
Stitch, from what I saw at play-ins and on G-Rex, wasn't even really that bad.
He was not bad. I think he's a pretty decent... He has a lot of potential, and he's a pretty great player.
I know I've seen Nova before. I think Nova is an average support, but like I said, average doesn't really get you much where in the LCK. And you gotta be stand out. Grace, I still think Grace is not as bad as people make him out to be.
I don't think Grace is great. I think that Linderong... It's going to mostly come from their strength in Stitch, Linderong, and Malor. I just don't feel like the other 2 are really competent. And I feel like even Linderong is not amazing. He's pretty decent, but he's not a star. I feel like the only person in terms of who I could call a star is probably Stitch. And even then, he's not a star. So...
their strongest player.
The strongest player is Stitch, I would say. I think... like
Linderong can carry, but it's very, like...
The reason I'm saying this is, like, the only reason they're behind above Sandbox is because of the fact that they just consistently have better players all around. Like, all around. Even their worst
players.
Yeah, even their worst players are pretty decent. More so is where Sandbox kind of struggles is they don't have anybody who's great, and they also don't have any... Like, their best players are average, and their worst players are terrible.
There's no stars. for Sandbox. There's somewhat decent stars for Jin Air, which kind of balances out.
So there's not much I can say about this. This team is probably going to get relegated. I'm going to put that out. I think when they get into the challenger scene, they're going to get relegated by one of the teams coming up, and so which is honestly what I think is going to happen with Sandbox too. So these two teams are not only the bottom two. I don't think they're going to be in for the summer split. And number 8 is Damwon Gaming.
Now, I was going to say, people, IG's coach that won Worlds in 2018 is their coach. So that's interesting.
It's interesting at the least.
I think he's going to leave after a year because they're not going to be successful. That's my personal opinion. Quote me on this at the end of the year. I think he's going to leave because they're not going to be successful. I just don't see a reason he would even join this team. Why just down IG? So
I think that obviously if you watched Damwon Gaming and you're kind of upset with this because they did pretty well at the Kespa Cup. I think
they beat SKT.
Well, it's not just Matt. They think that we should give them kind of credit because they beat SKT, kind of put them up like higher in the rankings.
I'm put out there. They got really lucky because that SKT did not know how to close. That SKT was winning that game.
No, there's no such thing as luck. I don't want to say that.
SKT threw so hard. They were winning the game. They could have won. And I feel like just because the SKT lineup was new, they didn't know how to actually sufficiently close out yet, which is the reason why I thought they won.
There's a reason why I don't give too much credit to the Kespa Cup is because anybody who's... What is that face you're making? It bothers me.
I'm cute.
Don't do that. But the two teams that were... I mean, a few other... Jesus.
English.
The two teams that were together before the... this whatever face that was. But... before this season started are Griffin and Damwon Gaming, and obviously we see from the Kespa Cup itself that there's a lot of what's it called that comes from being together for a long time. There's like synergy. You have a lot more than the rest of the teams.
It actually does pay off a lot. To have
so why I don't give too much credit to the Kespa Cup is because these teams that have been together for a longer time are going to obviously perform better than the teams that just kind of formed like slightly prior to the Kespa Cup.
Some of the teams that came to the tournament have only been scrimming for like 2 days.
Like, if you want my honest opinion, Canyon is obviously the superstar, the player who's been, like, they brought on probably the newest member. I see the newest.
Punch used to be on Kongdu Monster. I remember.
I guess he's not the newest member. I didn't even realize Canyon came in before.
Like, I've seen Showmaker. Nuclear. If any of you guys remember HUK Nuclear, he's a completely different player. He's actually really good. Yeah. Now. But
Canyon's the best player on the team. He was brought in as a solo queue superstar.
And then Canyon funnels all of his resources into Nuclear, who supremely carries the game now.
I would say that Canyon's still the best. Is still the superstar.
And I think Showmaker is still. I think Showmaker could be a really great mid laner. And I think he's shown that. But that's the problem. I still, even with all their players that are decent and actually better than the bottom two, I don't think this roster is still better than anything above them.
Yeah. I think that they're competent enough to play against a few of the other players, teams that are slightly above them.
I could see this team randomly beating SKT, randomly beating like KT.
And I could see them getting to playoffs, and we could be completely wrong just purely based off their coaching staff.
I could have a girlfriend tomorrow.
Well, it's not that extreme, dude. They obviously have shown that they're capable of doing this. So I don't want to say it's not possible. It is very possible that this team overperforms my expectations.
From what the players did, they overperformed to expectations.
Which just they kind of manhandled the teams like last. If you saw last year coming into the split, they manhandled the teams before them. The ones that tried to keep, they had to beat out what's it called? Put them
MVP, right?
They had to beat out who's the lowest ranked team from Korea?
It was MVP. And it was...
Damwon was first place, so they played whoever was lower ranked.
BBQ and MVP.
Yeah, they were both. I can't remember who was the lowest.
BBQ was the lowest.
BBQ, yeah.
Yeah.
They played BBQ. I really don't remember the games that much anymore, but they kind of put the smack on them. It was not really too close of a game, and honestly, I think they've drastically improved since then. If you've heard a lot of the teams from Worlds talk about Damwon Gaming, they said they didn't even take a game off them for most of the teams that scrimmed them. So I would say that Damwon is one of the...
I think Damwon is another dark horse you can kind of consider.
I would say they are the dark horse. They could obviously overperform, but I think that
even if they overperform, I still think in a playoff scenario, they still won't do that well. I think against like prepared drafts and stuff like that.
If you want my honest opinion, they have a pretty strong coaching staff. So I will say that it's very possible that they perform better in the playoffs than they do the regular split, but I really don't believe I don't think they make playoffs. Like, in my honest opinion, I don't know. Like, obviously, there's a lot of, like, kind of different, like, small variables that I can't take into consideration. But Nuclear,
he's really massively improved.
he has. And then we talk Canyon, and I think those are their 2 stars that they're going to have to.
And I think Showmaker could be their rock, their consistent mid laner that can overperform to expectation based off what's given him. I just don't know if he can play a supportive mid lane style yet, because I haven't seen that from him. But we'll see how it goes for them.
Okay.
And that's our number, what's that, 7?
That was 7. Number 6.
Just outside of, kind of like, could get to playoffs, we think, but could, like, just not either, based off just what it looks like. Hanwha Life Esports.
Okay. So, obviously, the first thing that when you talk about this team, you go to the bot lane. I think that Key and Sang-yoon are the ones that most of the people look towards, because Key has struggled with pretty much inconsistencies throughout his entire career.
I think
he was the.
What was that due to? Because he can't get along with his bot laner.
No, he's done this since he first came into. If anybody remembers when they were first coming into the Kespa Cup, is actually where Key and all of the ever team came into relevance. He was probably the single most impressive support, I would say. Like, in that moment, I think he looked better than any support I'd seen in years. Like, he was absolutely incredible first time coming in from the Kespa Cup. But realistically, this is also the same support that got replaced by Tortoro for Loken. Like, when they brought in Loken, like, Tortoro kind of replaced Key, because not that he was better than Key, but more so that he was more consistent, and Key could not get it through his head that he needed. Well, he could, obviously, but he couldn't pull off being consistent.
I think what Key struggles with is playmaking supports. I think he doesn't really.
Key's only good thing is playmaking supports, though.
But he's not even good at it at this point. I think better supports can do it than him in general, just like the way a team would need it.
Key is really good at playmaking. He's just inconsistent, and when he can't pull off the playmaking.
I think laning supports. I think just laning hasn't been that really impressive from the guy. Sang-yoon, I've watched him for a while. I think he's pretty decent. I've seen him he's just like, well, what kind of ADC should I compare him to? He's like
Sang-yoon.
He's like.
You don't think he's as good as Sang-yoon?
I don't think he's probably just a little bit better than Sneaky.
I mean,
and Sneaky's what, top 4, top 5 ADC? That's not too bad.
That's not where I put him.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You got flamed. Don't put me in your flame.
But
so, I think Sang-yoon is arguably like top 6 ADC.
I don't.
So that's not bad.
It's not bad. I think that obviously, Key is probably going to be it's going to all depend on how well Key plays on the day. Is how well this.
Now
lane
this is
goes.
a weird part. Now, we've seen both their mid laners, Lava and Temp. Temp was on BBQ, and Lava was on what, Jin Air too? Wasn't Lava was on
Rocks Tigers and this team when it kind of transferred.
Oh yeah, Lava. Okay, yeah, Lava was on Rocks Tigers because they switched them out for
Yes, but this team is Rocks Tigers now. This is the
they have Temp. I don't think Temp's gonna start unless Lava completely just starts inting on stage.
Well, I think
Temp was horrible.
I don't know about that.
Temp played so bad on BBQ. Holy crap.
I think the strength of this team is obviously going to come. I wouldn't even say that, to be honest, because Mujin was genuinely a really good player when he was on a...
That's the thing. Mujin, he is Korean, right? Yeah, he's Korean.
He is.
At Worlds, he stood up he stood his ground. He competed against some of the best players at Worlds. He played really well at MSI. Will he have... Because in LMS, he wasn't challenged. In the LCK, it's a lot different here. There's, actual good players here. So, I don't know how people are going to value that versus...
I would say that Mujin, it's not because of his lack of, what's it called? I think Mujin was a genuinely good player, so I don't want to take away from him. But I think Thal, another player is obviously Thal. I think that Thal is another player who I think is going to look better on this team than he did on SKT.
He either single-handedly won you the game or lost it.
It was a way less cool version of Blossom, to be honest. Blossom was so awesome. I don't think he's got picked up, sadly, but I feel like Thal he's gonna look a lot better on this team because there's a lot less pressure on him this time. I feel like that affected him more so than anything. But I think that he's still not a top tier. He's still not a top tier top laner, regardless of the situation. What are you doing, dude?
What happened?
What was that?
Sowon.
Who cares about him? He's not playing.
Wasn't Sowon their actual top laner for last split, right?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's going to get replaced by Thal. Thal is still better than him.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it's gonna be Thal, Mujin, probably Lava, and then Sangyun Ki. I think
that's way better than the bottom 3 rosters by far.
Ki is obviously, I think that Ki is without a doubt the most volatile player on this team. We're gonna have to, if you want to see games won, you're gonna have to look to him. This lane, the bot lane's gonna be won if he plays well. The bot lane's gonna be lost if he plays poorly. So this team is gonna revolve around how well he plays on the day. And
Lava really struggles if he is not ahead. That's the thing. Mujin, like I said, he hasn't been challenged yet sufficiently. I don't want to put him too high. I don't want to put him too low either. So Thal, like I said, single-handedly would lose them games and then win them games. So he's kind of a wild card. I think their biggest wild card player actually is Mujin. Because if he doesn't come and perform...
It's going to 100% Ki. How do you just
because
disagree with that?
If Mujin doesn't come and play like the same way he played in LMS, that's a massive, I think...
Again, I know you kind of disagreed with what I just said right there, but Ki is 100%.
I know he's a wild card, but we kind of know what we're going to get at.
You don't, because he's never... On the day, he plays different than the day he played yesterday. So what you're saying is not actually true.
I'm always right.
No, Ki 100% is the most inconsistent player on this team. I think that on his good days, he's really good. On his bad days, he's really bad. If he he's the one that's going to decide the lane itself, because obviously Sangyun's not going to win the lane because of the fact that the ADC lane is dictated by how well
some version of Teddy is not winning.
No, even then, the bottom lane is kind of dictated by how well the supports play, unless the support's just not good enough. So I think that if it's on the day how well Ki plays, and I think Mujin is honestly a good player. I don't know why you keep trying to take away from him.
No, you got to factor in LMS to LCK.
Yes, but you watched him play. It's not about
he did perform well at the international events he went to.
It's not even just that. He played well in LMS. Like, it's not because of his bad players. It's because of just the way he played. Like,
I think Hanwha Life safely 10, 9, 8, power ranked
6th. 6.
Count
that!
10, 8,
9. Oh my god.
10, 9, 8, 7. Hanwha Life is 7. Are you sure?
No, you're right. Oh my god. I was so disagreeing with you too. I counted 3 players. Yeah, you're right.
Now you have to hug me.
I will not.
Okay, we actually debated about this quite a lot. Because I was thinking about Kingzone's roster. Oh, a bit of news since we did news before and we started doing it. Nahyun, the person that has won 1 professional game in his entire league career, is now their backup. Maybe. Because he might be starting too. They haven't actually confirmed anything.
Well, to be fair, the reason they picked up Nahyun because he looks absolutely incredible on the solo queue scene if you've seen him. But it's obvious that's not going to be... I think the focus of this team is not going to be mid lane. Again...
This is probably going to be a chunk of a debate. Because I have them outside. He was actually going to put them in the top 6, right?
I was going to put them right in
playoffs. For those of you new viewers, when you watch Korea, top 5 makes playoffs in Korea, not top 6. They are they're just outside. They're just outside the playoffs. Here's the thing. Deft is their star player. He's always been on stacked rosters with super teams. He has to be the main carry. Yeah, I just don't see any other way possible. Pawn has not played good since he...
I think he played average. He played average on KT, so I don't think he's going to be the biggest liability. I think that the big problem with this is they need a secondary carry, and I think that really don't see it around.
Where are you getting that?
I think their bot lane in both Deft and Tucson are really top tier players in both their positions. So I think this bot lane is going to do extremely well into pretty much anybody, and they'll be able to compete with the best of the best, except for probably Teddy and Mata. I think Teddy and Mata will just wipe the floor with everybody, but I think that. The big problem with this roster is going to...
Every single position beside...
I would say Cuz is pretty great. I think Rascal's average. I think that it's going to come down to lack of actual superstars, but...
It's not even just lack of superstars. They're just like... I just don't see them... I don't even... What style do you get out of this team? I know what style we're going to get. You're going to get very passive.
I don't know if you get passiveness. I think
Pawn's not necessarily aggressive.
I think Pawn's not aggressive, but he definitely does roam, and Deft and Tucson are pretty decently aggressive laners.
Cuz is really inconsistent.
You can't be inconsistent and consistent.
Where I don't really see it. On paper, this is a massive downgrade from everything they had in the previous years, besides the AD carry position.
I think they got an upgrade in AD carry. They got an upgrade in.
He really thinks Prey is falling off.
Everybody thinks that. I think they got an upgrade in support too. Actually, I think that Gorilla did not.
Oh, dang!
How is that even crazy? Look at Gorilla's play last year. Everybody knows that.
I mean,
everybody who actually watched last year and watched Kingzone know that Gorilla and Prey absolutely played poorly last year. Anybody who watched it knows.
To be fair, Gorilla has performed better than Tucson in multiple different splits, years.
No, to be honest, if anybody actually knows what Tucson's done, Tucson is one of the top tier mid lane support since he's came to the league. Like
actually, he had only really played bad during the Cloud9 series. He played really well all the way up the year.
I think that Tucson's been one of the best supports in the league since he came into the scene. I think that Deft has been the best ADC for a while in Korea
now,
itself.
Some may argue, is that only due to his stacked rosters and him being able to flourish on that easier
Are we
with
saying
stacked rosters?
So do we discredit people because they have good rosters, or is that the reason? Because
but that scenario comes into play with this.
It doesn't really.
If he doesn't sufficiently carry the team, he's carrying the team. So I'm saying without these stacked players now, without these stacked rosters, can he do that? I think he has the potential to.
I think he can't. I'm not going to discredit him for what he's done because I still think he's been in the top 3 ADCs, in the top 2 actually, in pretty much every region he's went to. But at the same time, just because he's been in the top 2, do I think this team's capable of making to like the playoffs? I think they can make the playoffs, but I do think they're going to win. No, there's no way this team itself wins. This is not a winning
compared
team.
to just last year. I don't care how Kingzone performed in 2018 summer. This is still a massive downgrade roster.
I think this might genuinely be a better team than their summer. Like their summer was absolutely atrocious.
Kingzone still went 13-5. That's ridiculous.
I know they did, but if
that was not a clean 13-5. They're playing crisp, clean League of Legends.
If you
go back and watch the games, holy crap!
From spring to summer,
like boosted.
Yeah. If you go from spring to summer, they looked absolutely day and night, completely different. I think that Rascal's not terrible.
This is the thing with Rascal. I haven't seen too many games out of him, but I don't think he's going to be a bad top laner.
I mean, he did play a lot. He played a lot when what's his name?
When Colin got banned for saying that Chinese word.
Yeah, he did, and I think that Rascal's.
He wasn't the fault that Kingzone lost. He was actually playing.
Rascal's not bad, but at the same time, he's been a backup for his entire career for a reason. He's not an elite top laner. He's just.
You figure coaches can see this and go like, he's not going to win a lot.
I think they really brought in Rascal just purely, well, not brought in, but kept Rascal because they don't have another top laner, and that's the only reason they kept them.
Budget cuts.
They didn't get budget cuts.
They're rich. Every Korean team is rich. They're not poor. I just think like. Here's what you do if you're Kingzone. You go and you're like, okay, let's try not star players. Let's see if we can get... Because a lot of teams, you got to factor in, when teams see success out of not star players, because haha, puns. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think a lot of teams are trying out this underrated player, consistent player, rather than just stacking up their roster with superstars. And I think that's why you see this Kingzone roster. Now, if you're a Kingzone fan, you're probably really, really more than disappointed. I just see them just outside of playoffs.
I see them just outside of playoffs.
I think they could beat the top teams. Only if those teams ain't. Yeah. It's literally, like, because you factor in Deft at Worlds in last year we just had, he himself played kind of not that to a certain standard people held him to. I don't think Deft played really that good at Worlds 2018. He was good. I don't think he played to a certain standard. And if you take that, which is the most recent thing he just did, compared to this, that's really their only star player. And I don't think it's going to work out too well. Sorry, Kingzone fans. Year number 6. Now I can't count.
I mean, again, we have no actual insight besides what we think on paper. So this means nothing.
True.
This is just
I'm always right, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, I bet. So number 5, obviously this is going to be the playoff team.
Playoffs?
Do you have to do that every single stop it? So this is going to be playoffs from here on out. I think that this is obviously...
This is the elite of the elite.
No, it's not. This is the people who barely scrape by and make playoffs right here.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so 4th and 5th, they're like... You basically do exactly what people expect. You're an average, consistent team with that. You have your standard performances on certain days, and you lose to like the random teams.
Okay. So number 5 is going to be Gen.G. I think that
how the mighty have fallen. Oh, fun fact for those who don't know, Gen.G has never won a playoff series in the LCK. Never. They've only won regional qualifiers, which doesn't count. Playoffs in the actual seasons, they have never won one. So can you look at this and go like, this roster will win the first playoffs for this organization?
I wasn't paying attention to you. I'm sorry.
Do you believe that this roster can actually win a playoffs for them?
I could easily see them winning a game. I think they could win a series if they perform better than we think they can.
Okay, QV. What do you think about QV?
I think QV has honestly been playing really poorly recently. I think his most past performances have been pretty terrible. I think that people are giving him a little bit too much precedence off of how he played in the past and saying he's a pretty great top laner, which in reality I don't want to give him that. He played terrible during the summer split. Played pretty bad in the spring split too. Actually,
played not so good at Worlds.
This year or last year?
No, at Worlds 2018, he was like what? He was behind stats to Licorice. Like what in the world's going on?
Licorice had good stats though.
I mean, but like QV world champion compared to a new guy that just came out of Challenger, like that's ridiculous. Like at least in stats wise, he should be doing something.
Okay.
I think QV's just been not the same standard he used to have. Roach? No, not really playing Roach. What were we saying? Peanut. We had a big discussion about Peanut last night.
I think that
he thinks Peanut's declining.
No one thinks that. It's a complete proven fact. I mean, he is declining.
Is it really declining, or maybe he's just having that phase where he's not as good as he used to be?
It's not been that long. He has not been in the league long enough for that.
He's been in the league since what, 2015?
Yes, but his literally good year was like a year ago.
He had Rocks. He still made the World Finals in 2017.
I'm just saying. 2017.
Yeah, SKT made the World Finals.
Oh, he was in. Yeah, he was on SKT.
So I keep forgetting it. That's still the thing. He didn't. That was not the same Peanut that was in 2016 Rocks Tigers.
So let's be honest. He has not been playing well since that year. I think that he plays an aggressive play style, and he really has not played up to standards since. Like, even during his beginning of his Kingzone days, I think he played well, but
it looked like we were getting that Peanut back.
I don't think he's played as well as he has on Rocks since those days. I think he has played pretty poorly. Besides his spring split on SKT, he's played pretty poorly from then on out. Even then, I think he did pretty well during the first year of the first year of Kingzone, obviously.
The first part of last year, yeah.
The first part of last year, God, like I think he played pretty well for the most part.
Like it really did look like we were gonna get that Rocks Peanut back.
I don't think it ever looked like that. I think there was obviously we still had some insecurities or something. I don't know what it was, but we obviously knew that
inconsistencies compared to insecurities. Really,
insecurities could definitely be there. I don't. Why are you?
I thought you meant to say like
I don't think he was inconsistent. I think that it was obviously something more so mental in his head at this point because of the fact that I think there's something like just purely he's like after the SKT days when he got trash talked consistently for the team, like on the team.
I don't think he handled that very well.
I don't think it is. I think he's not really as confident as he used to be in himself, and I think that for the most part that's really affected his play. I think he needs to get back to that form, but I really don't think this like a lot of people want to say this is elite, but he's really like. I mean, he's still a top half jungler, obviously, but is he in the top? No. I don't think he is one of the top junglers.
I think he's top, but not, first, second place jungler at the moment.
Yeah, I think he can get back to that form, and I think that there's a few junglers he's better than, obviously. I think he's better than most of the others.
He's better than pretty much every single jungler that's below him. At least.
What does that mean? Every single jungler that's below him?
That means he only has to beat junglers above him.
What does that mean?
He's better than people worse than him, but he's not better right now than people that are better than him.
I can't believe you just said that. Did
you
think that was smart?
So what do you think about Fly?
Okay, let's get into that. Okay, so I think Fly was he was played really well in Korea. I would say he didn't play extremely well, but he was probably one of the better parts of the team. Like when it was just like when he replaced Crown, this team came like kind of formed together back like pretty well. I think obviously, if anybody remembers when he went to FlyQuest, he played pretty well there too. So I think it's not, like, regardless of the team put around him, I think he's pretty decently able to play well regardless of the situation. So he's not relying on the team. I think he can, kind of get his own resources and all that stuff. But I think that Fly he struggles in terms of, against top-tier mid laners, he's not capable of playing against them. He's not a top-tier mid laner. I think he's just a good asset to have. And I think that is a good reason to have him on the team. There's not many people who I would say, yeah, that's if you didn't get a superstar, most of the time in Korea you're not going to turn out very well. But I think Fly is more so similar to Kuro in that aspect. I think that Kuro would look like a superstar for some points, but he was not a complete superstar. I think that's the same aspect with Fly. Even though Kuro got, again, a lot of people like to give Kuro the superstar aspect because he got the MVP points, but we got to rely, again,
gameplay versus...
No, it's more so how MVP is kind of given to the people.
Korea.
In Korea. I think that's a lot less valuable. But I think that, obviously, Kuro played really well, and I think that's a good comparison of what Fly is. I think Fly is a little bit worse version of Kuro. I think that...
At certain points, one can look better than the other.
No, I think Kuro's the better player. I mean, I just
think what they offer, and depending on the split in the meta, one can look better than the other.
I don't know. I think Kuro's better than him in general. I just think that Fly is similar to him. I think that Fly it's a good comparison to make because I think that Fly has a similar play style, similar function on the team.
What do you think about Ruler?
I think Ruler's obviously good. I think that's like probably the best player on the team since Crown has declined. When Crown obviously was on form back in 2016, when they didn't win Worlds, I think that he looked incredible. I think that, I mean, not great. He looked pretty poor in comparison to Crown. But when Crown became terrible, even when they won Worlds, obviously Crown did not play well. He was not a good player at that point. But I think that Ruler was he was the strong point on that team. The reason why they kind of got to that point. Him and Kuve were kind of carrying the team, and I think that Kuve's not at that point, but I do think Ruler has not fallen off yet.
I think Kuve has the potential to be that way again.
He does.
But I don't think right now he's shown it as consistent.
No. I think that Ruler has not fallen off yet, and I think he's still he's a top-tier ADC in the league. And that's a good enough thing to have. I think that's the biggest reason as to why I can't put them below playoffs because of him.
Because I think their bot lane is good enough to just be better than... the weaker bot lanes. But Life, we have to go by what we've seen off Life and Kespa, which holy Galinos, like.
If you one more time say he's better than the people he's better than the people he's better than that are worse than him, I swear.
After seeing what Life did at the Kespa Cup, holy crud.
Yeah, Life is bad. I think that's in general. I wouldn't
say bad.
I would say
I'd say there's room for improvement.
There's room for improvement for everybody in existence. I
he should stop probably face checking.
I think
a lot.
Life is like honest. He has not played enough. I can't say much about him. He's been on the sub. He's been a sub since he came into the league, right below Kuve. I mean,
maybe it was Nurs playing his first competitive game.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put too much emphasis on that. Life has. Like,
we have to, but from just what we saw, Griffin literally clapped them. It wasn't even fair.
There's an obvious reason as to why Life was the sub instead of playing against for Core JJ. So this has to be a downgrade in any
NA import.
Yes, this has to be a downgrade in most people's eyes.
Fly's not necessarily a downgrade from Crown. I think what Crown showed, Fly's an upgrade in a certain aspect.
I think during the
Peanut's an upgrade in certain ways that Ambition isn't. But I think Ambition, the way he led the team and shot called, I don't know if Peanut can sufficiently fulfill that position.
If we're gonna go by what what Crown played during the regional qualifier, Crown was the better player at that point. Crown played better than him in the regional qualifier, and that's kind of what gave them we need to take Crown to Worlds, and that inconsistency is what kind of worries me, or just lack of ability to play in these pressure moments. So I think Fly is not great. Obviously, that's one of his bigger weaknesses of playoffs. So we'll have to see that improvement from him. And then I think that's pretty much it for the team. So
I really do think Gen.G has some hope for them.
Some. Yeah. And number 4, this is...
Afreeca.
I think Afreeca is by far steps above Gen.G.
I had a hard time debating this one, too. These teams in Korea this year, it's so hard putting these guys.
I think the top 4 are by far and away better than the rest of the league. I think this is where
I think on some days Gen.G could actually beat Afreeca, but...
I don't think they're as good as Afreeca. I don't think it's really that close. I think that Keen is obviously way better than Kuve, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think that Keen was the best top laner throughout the entirety of last season in Korea.
Man, if there was some Rookie and Uzi on the top 4 list, Keen is probably the top player at Worlds.
I think he was the best performing Korean, to be honest.
Yeah.
He was the best performing Korean at Worlds last year, I would say.
So you have Keen,
and then we have Spirit, who I think Spirit is one of the better junglers in the league also. I think
he is, but I think he can be exploited in certain ways.
I would have to see that ways, because I think there's a lot
because he got exploited quite a bit this year. It's the reason why they were switching him out with
I think that more so Moogly. The reason they're switching him out is because Moogly was obviously better on these aggressive carry-style junglers.
Yeah.
That's why they picked up Dread, who was previously called Twinkle. I don't know why he made such a drastic change in his name. I think it's
Light
sort
in
of
the dark must
it was
be
a
different.
masculinity thing. He had to pick something more manly than Twinkle, so he went with Dread. So Dread, like obviously Dread is gonna probably be fulfilling that. Again, I haven't seen enough of Dread, but he's probably gonna be fulfilling the kind of carry role that's being left behind by God, what's his name? Mujin. Mujin. He's gonna be taking over that.
Vitality, guys.
Yeah. But I think that Spirit obviously he's gonna be the consistent tank player and carry like obviously he's able to play carries, but I think he's more so gonna go for the tank style. And we're gonna have Dread taking over the aggressive junglers that I think that Spirit kind of struggles on.
I think Spirit showed this year why he's better than a lot of people thought. Because remember, a lot of people came off his Fnatic year, and then they saw him on Afreeca. You're like, okay, he's not a bad player. And then in 2017, he kind of got back to form. I think he's back to form. I just don't think this day and age in League, it's just as good as his style is. But I think he's still I think he's still competent. I just think there's a lot of better competition in his pool that can exploit him.
So I think that I think that pretty much the top half is pretty spoken for. They're pretty
UCal?
Yeah.
Ooh. So where do we go with UCal?
I mean,
his last series wasn't that great, but
he played against Rookie.
If you don't count that, which is really hard not to.
It really is not hard. He played against Rookie. I'm going to give him some slack for that.
He played
As
fantastic.
a rookie as a rookie. Like essentially he played poorly into Rookie, obviously. He had one good game, which is what a lot of people, even Caps himself could not say that. He was the second best mid laner at Worlds, I would say, right? Second best mid laner.
Probably, yeah.
I don't think there were in the fact is that's at Worlds and as a rookie.
And he's so young.
He's so young. Like, ridiculously talented, a lot of potential, and he probably has nowhere to go but up at this point. He could have one good... I mean, obviously, it could have been his one good year, but I don't think so. I think...
That's the problem. Was it... Because I don't know about that. He replaces Pawn. They replaced Pawn. That was the first player KT replaced on a super team, and they won a split.
Yeah. I think that...
He did something. Because KT hadn't won in years at this point.
I think that UCal is obviously one of the best mid laners in the world, not just in Korea.
I think he's fantastic.
So I think this is a great pickup for them. This is an obvious upgrade from Kuro. I think there's, in terms of international play, they're not going to struggle in any of their solo lanes. Keen and UCal are going to provide these gigantic double threats in the lanes that kind of dominate, like in the laning aspect.
I think Spirit and UCal will be a great combination. The way Spirit looks at the game, the way UCal looks at the game. I see that as a great jungle mid duo.
And we're going to have to go now to their bot lane, which is probably the weakest aspect of their team. And even then, I think aiming is not terrible. I think aiming is still a pretty consistently decent and non-exploitable bot laner.
I think Soul might be a starter from eventually, but...
I don't think Soul's going to take the spot of aiming. I really think that aiming is a good player.
Proud. I haven't seen Proud in forever.
Yeah, but I think Jelly is going to be the starter.
Jelly, right? Aiming and Jelly?
I think that Jelly is going to be the bot laner with him. I'm 90% sure about that. Again, I don't know who they're going to play during the regular season.
Yeah, because if you look on Leaguepedia, they haven't confirmed this stuff yet.
So. Well, if you look on anywhere, honestly, both of these bot laners, the supports, are completely, almost essentially rookies. Like, I don't know who's going to be playing. I think it's going to be Jelly, just based off of who I think has been playing a lot more with aiming in the solo queue. But, again, I don't know.
I think just in general, this roster cannot compete with the top 3.
I would say...
2 players can do it?
I would say 3 players. I think that Spirit is able to function as a really good pressure, consistent,
kind of funnels his resources.
I think their top half of the map, including mid lane, is going to completely be able to compete with anybody. I think they're going to be able to compete with anybody in the league. I think they have the best or second best top laner in the league, a really good jungler, and the top 2, probably 2 or 3 mid laners. There's not really anybody they can't compete with in that aspect, and I think they could easily take off games, even with their kind of slight weakness in the bot. So I think they're definitely somebody who I could see taking a lot of games off the top teams. Not taking first place, obviously, but I think they could if they came to if they kind of had better shot calling than them, which is very possible.
All right, so that's okay. Now we're at top 3. How the mighty have fallen. Super team. Nah. Well, we'll keep 2 players from that super team, and then we'll let everybody else go. KTs, Smeb, Score, BDD, Ganjo, and Snowflower. Or Mia.
To be honest, actually, they're going to be playing Snowflower, obviously. Yeah. But Zenit is actually somebody they kind of played during the, what's it called? During the...
Kespa, right?
The Kespa, but it was obviously Gongo was the better player.
Oh, God, Zenit is good. He would need to go to another team. He's not going to start.
I think Gongo is the better player.
I think Gongo's not as bad as people. Because people are like, is he good? I think he played good.
I think that Gongo looked. If anybody knows his kind of backstory, Gongo has not been on a team. He's not been a starter on any of the teams. He's been around since the Samsung White days. He was a sub during those days. Mm-hmm. He came in. He played in the Japanese league for a little bit, and his team was he was the starter on that team, and they were the second best team in the league, with him being pretty much the only star on that team. But again, he's never really played in a good region, so I can't really give too much credit to that.
But I think just what I saw from him, I don't think he's going to be an issue for them.
I don't think he is. I think this bot lane's going to be pretty strong.
This is definitely a downgrade from what they had.
Well, obviously, I think you're not going to really... Even Snowflyer, who I think is ridiculously good, is still a downgrade from Mata. So I think regardless of the situation, they have a weaker bot lane.
But then they get the KDA God in BDD.
I think BDD, if you want my honest opinion, this still might be a downgrade. I think this still is...
From UCal?
From UCal.
I don't know.
I think that UCal's played better than way better than
BDD's
recently.
Looked absolutely amazing
in certain aspects, but his summer split did not look great. I think it still looked good, but I
think he tried to carry the team in a way that he had done before.
Yeah, I think that he kind of relied on I need to carry the team because we're struggling, but I still think that UCal is probably the better player.
But UCal had much stronger players at that point.
Yeah, but we have to base it off their play.
Yeah.
Again, I think that
probably it's more or less a downgrade.
I think that UCal's looked better recently. I think.
Not downgrade. Also side grade.
I would say maybe a side grade is fair enough to say. So I think this might.
BDD can compete internationally. He's not a liability. I think it's if you lost UCal and you got BDD, I'd be okay with it. Here's the question mark of the roster. They grabbed who was on Jin Air. Jin Air was on almost relegated in 9th place.
It's not really a question mark. If anybody actually knows, Score is planning on going into military service at the end of this year. As to why they picked up is because they wanted to practice somebody to take over next year when he left. Unless he can win the Asia Games is actually what I believe what it takes to get out of military service there.
Crud.
But he has to win it, which is I don't know if that's gonna happen, but is
what we saw of Kespa, because that's what his most recent play. Because I think he's their biggest question mark. I don't know if you take a jungler who was on a 9th place team, put him on KT Rolster, and eventually might have to play Score.
If anybody know, I think that if the reason that Jin Air are in 9th place right now is because you took 2 players from them.
Yeah.
It was their 2 best players were Teddy and and they both left. That's why they're in a bad position. I think the is one of the better junglers in the league. I'm gonna put that. I think he's in the top 5 junglers.
I think he's not that bad.
I think he's better than Peanut.
But I think that eventually, if Score does leave, he'd be a downgrade.
Yeah, he'll be a downgrade from Score. That's not a big thing to say.
I think he played good. No. I think his issue was that he doesn't respect the enemy jungler's damage output at a certain point. We saw him getting caught out and just getting almost bursted on picks like Kindred, picks like Jin Zhao, so he can't help his team do Baron. I don't think he respects certain champions' damage at certain points.
I think when you're a pro, you have to know all the damage every champion does. I think that biggest problem is the fact that he doesn't know how to play when he's behind. That's something that Jin Air did a lot, but I think his strengths are going to kind of show this year. I think a lot of people are going to understand that I think he's one of the better junglers in the league.
I don't think he's bad.
Yeah, I think he's number 4. I think he's above. I think he's better than Peanut. I know a lot of people disagree with that because of what Peanut's
4
done.
dislikes.
Yeah, I don't care. The has proven that he's definitely capable of being one of the best junglers, but I think he's obviously not as good a scorer. I don't think.
And now we have Smeb.
Smeb is. So
you're coming off Kespa and you're coming off World.
I think that Smeb is still one of the best top laners in the world. I think he's
arguably still one or second best Korean top laner.
He was not better than Keen last year. I think that Smeb had a really far fall last year. I think that was one of probably his worst year since when he first started.
There was an interview where he had explained a bunch of things. It was pressure, high expectations from the fans. They were struggling to see who was the captain, Mata or Smeb, all year. There were certain calls that Mata and Smeb would debate about. I think that affected his play. You could see he was not playing the same way he was playing.
I'm gonna hope it is. I think that Mata's a more valuable piece than Smeb, if you want my honest opinion.
But the whole synergy with captain issues can affect someone's play too.
I'll agree with that. I think that Smeb is honestly one of the best top laners in the world, and not in terms of just mechanical skill, but just his knowledge of around the map kind of stuff. He makes really good teleport plays.
He's not afraid to pick out some pocket.
He's top, the best during his prime. He was the best in both carry and tank junglers. Top laners.
Fun fact: in his prime, It's never happened. Faker's always been number 1. Smeb took his spot. I don't know what player you can name that's ever taken Faker's spot.
The year he took Faker's spot, he did terrible at Worlds.
I don't know about terrible. The year where he made that Kennen
Yeah. They did terrible results-wise.
Underperforming. I wouldn't say he was even bad.
He wasn't bad. That's not even when he was. His Kennen ult was not when he was the best in the world. That's not when he was rated number 1.
Yeah, it was in 2016.
It was 2017 he was rated number 1, was it not?
2017, they didn't go to Worlds, remember? Because KT went to Worlds
Oh,
this year.
yeah, that's... Okay, 2016.
You should let Levy do the remembering.
Shut up.
I still think he's one of the best top laners in the world. I think that when other...
No, he was number 1 in 2017. Not in you're talking about the World's Top 20, aren't you?
For 2016, yeah.
Who cares about World's Top 20? You're talking about the best top-rated player in the world was him.
I mean, yeah, but he's still beating out Faker.
Well, yeah.
Also in 2016
regardless,
form.
I think that 2016 form, I still think that he was great in that aspect. I think that's he's probably his best year since. I don't think he's had as good as year since then. I think 2017 was still incredible, but I mean, again, he's been struggling a lot recently.
He's struggling kind of to see if he's going to be captain or just the player.
Again, we don't know that. This is all based off of what we've heard. We have no idea.
No, this is an interview. Is what he said.
It's an interview, yes, but that's all what he said. We can't actually know what it is.
True.
So I'm going to base it off the fact that he's
for me, he's still going to be like top 2, top laner.
I mean, obviously he was top 2 last year. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to take that away from him. He was still one of the best top laners in the league. So really, realistically, you can't take that away from him. There's really not much you can say besides the fact that he's proven that he's able to compete with everybody. He's better than most people. Like, he was the best top laner 2 years in a row, I would say. Best top laner in the world for 2016 and 17.
I don't think he was prepared to face the Shy the way the Shy was. I think the Shy just matched him, and I think he struggles with facing players that can match him. That's what, like, Shy, Khan, players like that, Keen, who can match him, that's who he struggles with.
I would say that at that point in time, the Shy was just a better player than him. So that's the reason why he lost. It's because he was just outmatched. It wasn't just because he struggles against outmatched, because I feel like he's done well against these top laners who play carry jungle. I mean, top laners, like, we've seen him play well against Khan. Mm-hmm. We've seen him play well against Keen. But when it came down to the Shy just being just generally just a better player.
So that's the thing. Like, he can't, when someone's comparable to him or a little bit better, he struggles against that because he's really good. But if you face someone just even better than that, he's like, how am I gonna beat this guy?
Well, that's obvious. If you play somebody better than you, you can't beat them.
That's where he struggles with. If he can just get over that little hump again, if he can get over that hump, I think he'll be just fine again.
You can't get over a hump of being worse than somebody. You have to just not
number 2 pick.
You frustrate me so much.
KT is going to be our number 3 pick. Griffin. What do we feel about the rookie anime story challenger team that went to the finals?
I mean, there's not much you could say. They did well into the Kespa Cup. They
all got better. See the thing with Griffin, people don't understand. They played aggression. They were all new. I think that they didn't know how to sufficiently know what to do if they didn't play with aggression. Now you take your aggression, you take your year of experience, and they've learned how to control it and play aggression to a macro sense, which is what I saw from in the Kespa Cup. Now you have an even much just better team. And they beat all the top teams anyway, except for KT. They have a
better team in what aspect? I don't think they've replaced anybody.
No, they're a better team in general, in just like improvement-wise in terms of players. Like, all the players improve their game sense, their macro sense. You take all that, they're just a much better team. They've been together for the longest.
I think they've seen the reason that we saw them obviously be it. Like, I want to put that out there, that we've seen them beat a lot of the teams by far was because mostly, I'm going to say they're going to look a lot less dominant when it comes down to all these teams kind of getting used to each other. So you're not going to see them absolutely demolishing everybody in the league. It's just not going to happen. But we saw Lehans being one of the most, like, Lehans, I never know how to pronounce his name. He's one of the best performing players on this team, actually, if you watch during the Kespa Cup. I think that him and Tarzan are absolutely incredible.
Tarzan has been arguably top 3 jungler since he came in.
I would say top 2, maybe even 1. I think he played
him
really
and Sword.
well.
Oh my, Sword has been playing him fantastic.
Sword. I think there's really no weaknesses in this team.
The weakness was Chovy. I don't think Chovy, because he got switched up with Viper because he
Viper's bot laner. I would be surprised.
Not Viper. Chovy got switched out with another mid laner because I knew that they had another mid laner they would switch him out with. I forgot his name.
But Chovy obviously is.
Chovy didn't do well when he got ganked constantly.
But Chovy performed extremely well in the Kespa Cup. I still think he's probably the weakest member of this team, if not maybe him or Viper.
I think Chovy is on an upward trajectory.
I think obviously Chovy has a lot to improve with, and I think that if we're going to talk about weaknesses, I really think they're all way above average, every single one of the positions.
Their weakness, I don't think they're flexible. I don't think they can play a different style of League of Legends. I just don't think they can.
Early game aggression is obviously something that can work out. We saw it work out with Samsung White. I think that Samsung Blue, who played towards late game, just didn't work out for them. I think if you can make early game aggression work if you're just that good.
But like you said, if no one can stop them from doing this, it really doesn't matter. But I do think that's a big draft issue, is that if they're not flexible at certain points, when the meta changes, that could be a big problem.
It's not a draft issue because they can play different characters. I think the more so it's their play style. Yeah. They're not going to change their play style, and you don't have to. I think they're going to be the definitive. If you can't get around our early game aggressive, you can't win. And there's not going to be a lot of teams that can do that because this team is kind of centralized around early game aggression. All of them are gonna either win lane or just force you into a situation where you can barely scrape by and not go slightly even. Like you're not gonna keep up in every lane. One of your laners you're gonna lose for the most part if you're not the best team in the league. Like it's just hard for me to say that they're like there's anybody capable of just staying toe to toe with them.
Like from what we saw last year out of them, great players around in general. I don't think, even when they're supposed to lose, they don't lose. You get counter matchups to them, they don't even lose that. They ward very effectively. Their vision or control on the map is really good. Their objective control their control around the Baron is really good. I just don't think a lot of the newer teams in the league, not only do they have to struggle with not being synergized, they're facing a team that it has. I mean, Griffin has one style, but it's good enough to beat anybody if you know what you're doing. So Tarzan is obviously a world-class jungler. Holy crud!
Don't touch my mouse.
Squeak.
But
don't mouse a squeak. I don't remember.
So I think that's pretty much it. I mean,
they have Rather now.
What?
Rather is on loan. I remember Rather. Rather was on Flash. Yeah, it was on Flash Wolves.
Rather's not on this team.
They said Rather is on loan.
He's not on this team. What do you mean? He's not. Rather's not on this team.
Oh, Rather was their backup. He got replaced. Chovy kept getting switched up by Rather. Rather was more consistent aggression the way Chovy should have functioned in the team. That's why they kept switching out with Rather.
So obviously, there's pretty much self-explanatory. There's a lot of extremely aggressive laners. A lot of them are dominant. You're not going to see really any of them losing. So, I mean, there's not really much to say.
They're like the Cloud9 for...
Don't ever say that again. Don't ever say...
They're like the Cloud9 when they came into the league where they're just super dominant and they're good.
I thought you were saying that they were comparable. They have nothing similar to Cloud9.
No, just the way they came into the league and they're just dominating everything.
Yeah, but they're not... I wouldn't even say that's similar because Cloud9 kind of revolved around shot calling at that point more so.
I think they are shot calling though.
They're not... obviously, everybody has to shot call to an extent, but their biggest thing is obviously not shot calling. It's just winning. If they fall behind, obviously, if they can't get their lead formidably kind of sealed away, as we saw during the KT, the league, what's it called?
Series.
KT series, they kind of... What are you doing? Don't touch that. If we saw during the KT series, they were not able to seal them fully away, and they ended up losing because if they can't end up doing if they can't finish off the game, then
they're
it's just not. Yeah, I wouldn't say the one-dimensional, but more so they just that's where their strengths lies. Once you get past their kind of power spike, they're done for. But I think as we also saw that during the Samsung series, which I think Samsung overperformed during then. I think they played. I think honestly, Samsung.
It went to 5 games for a reason. Griffin was not
Griffin.
weak.
Yeah, Griffin didn't play well enough. I think
Griffin was massively tilted.
I think Griffin played poorly after the finals, but Samsung also are a late game centric team, and they ended up being able to push it towards their strength, which is also Griffin's weakness, which I feel like, obviously, since Griffin wasn't playing on form during that entire series, it just was a bad matchup. I just feel like they just needed. This is still a weakness that I think this team probably has, but we didn't get to see it exploited during the Kespa Cup because there was no team capable of keeping up with them in each lane. So we're gonna have to see. I think Lehans is not gonna keep up the same level of play they had during the Kespa Cup. Unlikely. If he does, then this team might be first. I think that's the big Lehens. If Lehens plays the well as well as he did there, then this team is 100% either taking the. I mean, obviously you already know who the top team is. Taking them to 5 games in a best of 5, or just winning, because I think that they are stronger in the top lane. I think they're capable of beating a lot of these. I mean, they're capable of beating everybody below them by far, and then easily taking on SKT. And SKT is obviously our number 1.
Because you guys haven't heard it yet. That'll appease a lot of the SKT fans.
Yeah, I think
Pyrion is obviously the best mid laner in the world.
And Pyrion's also not on this team, so.
So most of you guys know the story. Like now, there's going to be certain issues with them being number 1. I don't think it's like definitive though. They'll be like a dominant team. But I do think just on paper, if you look at the roster, all these players are fantastic. Big question mark for me is Khan.
Obviously, that's going to be
if the meta changes. Khan's one of the best top laners in the world, I think, but I don't think he's the best in a certain aspect. Like you see the Shy and Smeb, they can play like tank junglers the same way they can play carry top laners.
They can play tank junglers.
Like Khan, not Khan. Shy and Smeb can play tank junglers the same way they can play the carry top laners, in which they're still winning the game, they're still beating their opponent, they're still pairing up with their jungler, invading, getting TPing and stuff like that. Khan doesn't do that. I think Khan is very lane focused as like a better top laner in the world, and I think it's not really flexible. Then again, you have to be able to beat that. So I think Khan's their only question mark actually, because he did not have a good summer split, and if you can't say Faker is a question mark. I don't think it's going to be possible.
I think that, again, obviously...
If you go by Teddy and Casper Cup, he's definitely not a question mark.
This bot lane itself, just Teddy and Mata, are going to get you into 3rd place alone. They alone can get you into 3rd place. I think that they are good enough. Teddy's the best ADC in Korea. Mata's the best support in Korea.
Faker's arguably still, like, if people wanted to compare to BDD, I mean, he's arguably then still top 2. So
and then we're gonna have Clid or Haru. I think both of them are capable of being So it really both of them are definitely top tier junglers. I think both of them are better in the top 4 to 3. It really depends on who you're talking. I think that Clid's probably gonna be the starter from what I've seen. But yeah. Haru is obviously capable.
Yeah.
Haru's capable.
You'll probably see Haru play some games in the best of 5.
I think they're gonna. This is what SKT does pretty much every year. They have 2 junglers in best of 3s. They play the early game aggressive jungler and then kind of swap back to the more centric, macro centric jungler for the later games once he loses one.
I think this year, after this year's over, we'll see who they actually settle on.
They're not gonna settle. I mean, let's think about that. The junglers they've always had 2 junglers. They always switch them out. That's always been their playstyle. They're not gonna settle. I don't think.
Khan, this is the issue. We know Khan's there, but Crazy is our backup. I don't think Crazy's gonna have any start time unless Khan is seriously inting and just not doing well. Maybe Crazy gets to start.
If Khan comes on to foreign and plays tanks, there's no way they get out of 1st place.
Yeah, see, if Khan can be flexible and play tanks, holy crap! I don't see him not even.
If Khan can play aggressive top laners, at this point, I don't even know if he's able to play that. He has not looked great recently.
So that's the problem. If Khan, that's why Khan's their question mark. Because for what I saw, Khan's still their question mark. They put him on Urgot duty and Cho'Gath duty. Holy crap! How the mighty have fallen. But
you said that 3 times. Okay, so I want to say
Faker himself. Yeah. They said they have him on Lissandra picks right now. So we don't even know what Faker has in his champion pool because they haven't they haven't showed us yet. So.
Okay, yeah, I have to agree with that, but I also think that Khan is honestly, if he comes back to his form on just aggressive tank tops, I could see him doing well. But he's not playing well on aggressive tops. That's what he's known for, but he's just inconsistent recently.
If you're not even playing good on what you're known for, you're
just not good enough. He's not good enough on top lane. Aggressive top laners anymore, and it's
then
really
the meta is going to be swap between tank and carry top laners. He's not always going to get the carry top laners because they're going to ban them out first rotation.
You can't ban all. There's a lot of
tank in general. They're going to first pick him a tank because if you ban the carry top laners,
you can't ban all the carry top laners.
I mean, you can, but they're going to want to ban the meta ones.
There's going to be a lot of meta top laners that are probably not tanks.
Can you trust that guy to play? Oh, he can't play Fiora. What am I saying?
I don't know if he can play Fiora. I'm sure he's fine on Fiora. His mechanics are not poor.
Yeah. That's the only... Because some people are like, why is Khan their question? Khan is definitely their question mark. Have you seen him play recently? Holy crap, that's the question mark. Now, Teddy and Mata, I think they might have an issue, but it's not player-wise. I think they might have an issue in terms of what they want to play as their bot lane. Do they want to be a lane bot lane, a roaming bot lane, stuff like that? Faker, I don't know how he'll synergize well with his team. That's the issue.
He was put on Lissandra duty pretty much the entirety of the Kespa Cup.
So, like, them synergizing could be an issue, which is the reason why Griffin might take them from the top spot, actually.
I think that Faker is not the synergy issue. It's going to come from, I think, honestly, it's going to come from the top side of the map in Clid and Khan. If Clid is probably the starter, most likely. I think that it's going to come from these two because we don't even know how they synergize, honestly. Khan is going to kind of demand a lot of jungle pressure because of how much he's going to probably be pushing up in this lane.
I think Khan, like, he's not going to be funneled all the resources, but I think the way he's been playing, the coach is probably going to have Clid go up there more or less than often.
But the thing about it is, obviously, if you're an aggressive top laner, you always demand the response from the jungler from both sides.
That's what Faker demands too, because we saw Clid gank a lot for Faker.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying. What I'm saying is, in terms of just play styles in general, it kind of forces both junglers on both teams to kind of go up and kind of try and either save their laner from Khan's aggression, or kind of keep Khan from overextending, because that's what Khan's going to be doing. He's just too much of an aggressive player. There's nothing wrong
when to back off.
No, I don't. I think it's not the biggest problem if Clid is on the same page. If Clid is on the same page and kind of keeps an eye on the top side of the map so he can know whether or not Khan's about to be ganked, I think this could work out. But the synergy issue between these two is going to be the definitive. Is this going to be the best team in the world or not?
Yeah, because I think that Faker, Teddy, and Mata are fine.
They're obviously fine. I think these are the three. Maybe Faker, best player of all time, obviously.
These are the 3-star players,
and then Teddy and Mata are probably the best in the position at the world. Both of them. I think I'm going to put that out. I think that's pretty not hard to say. I don't think there's really anybody who can really compete in those two. I guess people would like to say Uzi is better than Teddy, but I really don't think so.
I think Uzi probably is, but
I don't think that Uzi's better than him. Now that I think that Teddy is on a better team.
Uzi funneled resources into versus someone who's just literally beating you on their own.
I think that different. Yeah, Teddy's gonna. People are gonna kind of understand why I think Teddy's gonna be the best player in the best ADC in the world now that he's on a better team. It's gonna be easier to see it. I think it was kind of hard to see it because of the fact that he was on a worse team. You can't 1v9, especially as an ADC.
Especially not on that Jin Air team, you were in 1v9.
That Jin Air team, the best thing about them was the fact that they could stall out to late game so Teddy could take over after that. That's when ADCs come online. That was the best quality they had.
So you're going to have, basically, like I said, the question mark is going to be Khan. He's going to have to find some flexibility because SKT has always been a team that's been able to be flexible based off the style of League of Legends that they wanted to play. But their organization has had to change up what they've done versus what they used to do, because I think a problem is what they hit a wall basically in which okay, we're still trying to play the same League of Legends we tried to play in 2015. I still don't think this roster is better than any of the rosters that has won Worlds, because they have to win Worlds pretty better than that in general. I think that the 2015 roster is still arguably one of their best, but this one has the potential to probably rival that. I think Colin just has to come back to form, and that's pretty much it. It's really all it comes to that. So.
That's pretty much our rankings. I mean, they're obviously going to be wrong. I mean, we're not going to get all 10 of them right.
Now, if I'm going to say who's going to win the split, probably SKT.
Most likely. I mean, it's obvious. I think SKT is going to probably win Worlds, but who knows?
Who knows? You might get married tomorrow. And girls are gross.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. If anybody has any kind of opinions on...
Well, we're going to be getting some for this one. It's LCK.
I mean, LCK is probably the easier one because I think a lot more people are going to be looking for the NA rosters, so... If you have any kind of opinions on the bottom tier teams, which I honestly didn't know enough about, if you have your own opinions on something we might have skipped out on, I'd like to know.
Someone's gonna be raging. Why isn't Jin Air 10th?
I don't think a lot of people are gonna rage enough. I think a lot of people care more about the top lanes, but the bottom two teams kind of confuse me. I'm not too sure on those teams. So
from what I've seen, I went off from what I saw in the individual players.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a lot of them are just too new for me to say anything.
This is very rare. We have the exact same list. So, yeah. See you guys later. Nightwing JT8 signing out.
Why do you do that? Do you do that every time?
But it lets you know who's who.
We know who. You didn't even point. This is just a hand.